Typically, when someone hurts us or they do something to piss us off, we get defensive, we get angry and fly off the handle. And then after that conversation, we ruminate about everything that they've ever done or said that makes us upset. And then we're stuck in this cycle of being frustrated and anxious and always fighting. And I want better for us. Talkticians, welcome and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tatiana. This is the channel where I teach you communication strategies to help you master conflict resolution. Now, my heart breaks every time that I hear a story about a family or a friendship breaking up simply because people, they're not bad people. They just don't know how to communicate. And that's because most of us really are ill-equipped to have difficult conversations. When we don't make the effort or take the time to learn healthy communication skills, we lose out on a lot. We lose time, we lose self-confidence, and we need relationships. And I don't care what anybody says, like nobody is an island. We all need each other. So if we need each other, we have to learn how to talk to one another. So today I'm going to teach you how to prepare for hard talks on a really holistic level, mind, body, and spirit. When we're in disagreement with somebody, typically we take our stance as gospel and we automatically assume that the other person is dead wrong. I want you to remember that there are three sides to every story: your side, their side, and the truth. And it's going to take a great deal of flexibility and humility on both sides of the table in order to have more peaceful conversations. So the first thing that I'm going to tell you is that you have to deal with yourself first. Before you get into any heated conversation or any conversation in general, deal with yourself first. So with the body, you have to make sure that your basic needs are met. And I know it sounds common sense, but we don't do it. Okay, so make sure that you take the time to eat, replenish your body, to be well rested before you go into what could be a heavy conversation. Make sure that you're hydrated. Check your body to see if you feel any aches and pains anywhere. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a difficult conversation with a headache or I was hangry and it didn't go well because I didn't do the work to make sure that I was first okay. And I'll be the first person to tell you that it makes it very difficult to think clearly and to be empathetic when your body is telling you that you're hungry or you're starving or you're in pain. So make sure that that base level stuff is taken care of first. And then dealing with the mind. This is where it's super important to do a lot of self-reflection. This is the time to ask ourselves some questions. What feelings come up when I think about the problem that I have with this person? What situations from my childhood are not influencing the way that I'm speaking to myself and the way that I'm speaking to the other person? And what part am I playing in this dynamic? When we're in conversation, am I yelling? Am I name calling? Am I brushing the other person off when they express how I've hurt them? Am I expressing myself clearly and honestly? And I think the most important question is, what emotion is it that I'm feeling? And I need you to be real with yourself. And after you've done that full assessment and you've thought about your emotions, if the only thing that comes up is anger, I need you to dig a little bit deeper. One of the tools that I like to use is the emotion wheel. And basically it helps me to figure out what the heck emotion or emotions am I actually feeling. Anger is absolutely valid, but when you get to the root of the issue, the person could really be feeling rejected or could be feeling lonely. And the reason why that's so important to becoming an effective communicator, and it's so important to the conversation, we deal with different emotions differently. We tend to be a lot more understanding and caring and compassionate if we know that somebody's feeling rejected or lonely versus feeling angry. So the clearer you are on the way that you feel, the way that you can actually name your emotions, the less time that you're going to spend arguing on the wrong thing. So once we've had the conversation about our feelings, the next step is to now define the purpose of the conversation. Why are we talking to this person? Is it to just let off steam and we need to kind of be careful with that or be mindful with that? Are we going into this conversation trying to figure out the other person's perspective? Are we having this conversation because we need to make a decision and we need the other person's input? Or has something already happened? Maybe we had a poor conversation or just something happened that we didn't like and we're going into it because we need to apologize or we need to set a boundary maybe. We need to understand the purpose of the conversation because when you get into it, you're going to get emotional. So you need a focal point. So you've dealt with your feelings. You've defined the purpose of the conversation. The next thing that you need to do to help guide you is to clarify your values. Everybody's values are different. For me, working on my skill in communication, growth is very important to me, and being curious. Those values are important to me because what I used to do was when I got really upset, I would just cut the person off. And while that does work in some situations, I lose out. I lose out because I don't get the opportunity to express myself and to learn different things and to work through conflict. And the same thing for the other person. They don't get the opportunity to do that either. So, in this stage of my life, I want to grow. I want to be able to express myself more clearly. So, you establish your own value. And then curiosity. I used to be really judgmental, really, really judgmental. If somebody harmed me, hurt me in some way, they were a bad person. It was just straight moral failure, and I didn't want to deal with them anymore. And sometimes there's just a miscommunication. It's not that the person meant me any harm. Sometimes it's that we're just not on the right page, and a healthy conversation would get us there. But I didn't allow for that because I was really judgmental. So to combat that, I developed an attitude of curiosity. Keep your values top of mind as you're in this conversation, because that is what is going to keep the conversation from becoming derailed when things get emotional. Not if, but when. So, in preparing for these difficult conversations, we have dealt with our feelings, we've defined the purpose of the conversation, and we've also established our values so that can keep us focused on having a healthy conversation. The next thing you want to deal with is your spirit. And for me, what that looks like is prayer, meditation, and visualization. Now, when I used to pray, this is how it went. It was very passive. I was begging God, please, please take this person out of my life, or please help me to be patient and compassionate. And then I would like run off and go and do all of my errands. The problem with running off right after prayer is that you need the time to meditate, which just means to me, you sit down and you be quiet and you listen. When you pray or when you talk, that's only one side of the conversation. That's just you doing this part. That's you petitioning. But then where is the part for you to actually get the answer, right? So I learned to pray and be more, I don't know, pray and be more active in my prayers. Instead of begging, I would say things like, I am patient. I am compassionate. Thank you, God, for helping me to control my emotions when I hear things in the conversation that I don't like. So changing the way that I pray, actually taking the time to sit down and listen, to process and actually get an answer was very helpful. And it never fails. I always get some kind of new insight when I take that time to meditate. I might hear, you need to be calmer, you need to be more compassionate, you need to say it this way. You need to remember the time that maybe that person felt sensitive about this area. So that prayer and that meditation piece really helps. And then what I do to kind of tie everything up, or I guess kind of put it in a bow, is then I'll then visualize. We do that all the time anyway, but I think we do it in a negative way. So we may see that conversation going really poorly. We might see them, getting upset or slamming doors, or we see ourselves not being successful. We don't want to do that, because you're going to bring that feeling into the conversation. So what I've learned to do after I've prayed, after I've meditated, is to then visualize the conversation going well. What is it going to feel like when the person says, I didn't see it like that? What is it going to feel like when I hear them in a different way because I came into the conversation more peacefully? And I actually close my eyes and I see that happening, and it helps me to be so much calmer, so much more positive going into the conversation. So we've dealt with the body, we've dealt with the mind, and we've dealt with the spirit. Now, what if you have done all of this preparation and the conversation still doesn't go well? You still fly off of the handle, you get upset, or the other person, invalidates you and doesn't listen, like the cycle is still continuing. Do you just give up? Absolutely not. This is a process. You have to continue trying. So I'm not going to tell you try to be all kumbaya and pray and meditate right in the middle of you being angry. You have to deal with the body once again. So you communicate with that person. You say, hey, I'm feeling a little heated right now. Let me take a few minutes, or let's pick up this conversation in a few days. And you go into another space. You go for a walk. You go into another room. You do some breathing exercises. You calm your body down. If it helps, write, get on the phone, talk to a trusted friend. And once you feel calmer, I am very passionate about movement. Move your body, put on some music, dance to some hip hop, some salsa, merengue, bachata, whatever your vibe is. But do that. Movement is so important because it helps to release those happy chemicals in the brain. It gives us energy. And those are both things that we need in order to have healthier conversations and just to feel good in general. Now, what if you're like, Tatiana, I ain't no salsa dancer. I don't need to be doing all that, and I don't see how it's going to help. That's fine. It doesn't have to be a full out piece of choreography. What I want you to understand is that movement helps, and we do it naturally already. When you're nervous or when you feel anxious, maybe after that conversation didn't go so well, just, shaking, you know, bouncing, things like that help to make us feel calmer and help us to regulate our emotions. So simple movements like that are also very helpful when you're feeling upset. Now, I just gave you a list of things that I want you to do to prepare for a conversation. Take care of the mind, take care of the body, take care of the spirit, be self reflective, and all of these different things. And it sounds like I want this to be linear, and I do not. This entire thing is a cycle. This is something that you have to practice over and over and over again before the conversation, during the conversation, and after. Okay, so what I want us to work on to be better communicators is to work on integration. These things do not exist in a vacuum. You have to make sure that your mind is well, your body is well, and your spirit, and you have to do that consistently. So if that conversation didn't go well after you've done all this prep work, that's okay. But this is a great opportunity now to do some self-reflection. What did you do or say in the conversation to help it go the way that it went? Were you yelling? Were you name calling? Were you actually listening? Were you sarcastic in your tone? All of those different things. What emotions came up? Why did those emotions come up? Did you actually meet your purpose? Did you get close to the purpose? Remember, we talked about that. Was the purpose to just let out your emotion? Was it to gain understanding? Was it to apologize? Did you actually meet the purpose? And last but not least, those values that we talked about defining, how well were those values communicated? How well did they show up? Did you listen? Were you curious? Were you non judgmental? Were you dedicated to growing through the discomfort? The more you practice this, the better that you will become at communicating in difficult times. One final tip that I want to leave you all with, I want you to understand that our communication styles don't just happen, and there are a lot of different factors at play. You have to deal with people's cultural backgrounds, the way that they were brought up, their personality, the way that their brains function. So it's not just because a person wants to be difficult. Sometimes it could be that, but for the most part, there are a lot of different things at play. So I want you to continue to be really patient and graceful with yourself and with the other person that you are in communication with. So on this channel, we are all about learning and building community. So I want you to let me know in the comments, how do you prepare for difficult conversations? What's worked and what hasn't? Talkticians, till next time.